But at the end of the day, we as the people have to be fed up and say enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Listen, we have to make a decision. Black, white, brown, tall, skinny, short, it doesn't matter. One injustice, one place is an injustice in every place. And we gotta come together as a people and declare that I'm not tolerating this anymore. We gotta stop. We have to stop the nonsense and take back our communities. And we have to police ourselves. And in the event that an officer tries you unjustly, don't wait for him to pull the trigger. Fight like you love yourself. Fight like Ali for your life. If you don't fight for your life, how much do you love yourself? Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. You know, a lot of people may wonder why I titled the video the way I did. But this video, I believe, is, well, not is, it has the intro part that you saw serves as a perfect example as to why I and other people that you've heard in the black sector of social media say that when it comes to serious matters, and particularly matters of self-preservation, you simply do not take advice from black women. When it comes to leadership roles, you simply do not fall behind the foresight of black women. Really, any woman, if you're a man. Now, before I even get into that, just to help y'all understand where this video came from. As I had mentioned before, I'm trying to finish this Amber Geiger Botham Jean documentary that is entitled Black Zebras and White Lions. It's going to be an absolute masterpiece. When I finish it, I'm going to be releasing several previews to help to help advertise it before I fully release the documentary itself. As I said, some of you Patreon members have already seen part 1, but there's a whole nother half that hasn't been released because I just simply haven't gotten around to finishing it yet. So many things come up, and when you're doing something like this, it goes through, even in Hollywood, something called production hell. Look it up, where there are other priorities to get in the way, other things come up, you kind of forget about it, you come back to it, and I could have finished this a long time ago, but just so many different things, like me producing this video, just get in the way of it. And so when you're producing a documentary that's going to be 7, possibly 8 hours long, if it's a real documentary and not just you talking shit, there's going to be a lot of footage and a lot of content that you come across, that you either come across for the sole purpose of research, or you come across for the sole purpose of including in your documentary, for the purpose of editing and producing the documentary. And this happened to be one of those clips. It's a clip from 4 years ago, as some of you may recall, during the Black Lives Matter protests over the fatal shooting of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Philando Castile in suburban St. Paul, Minnesota. There was, the very next day, there was a incident where there was a Black Lives Matter protest all day in Dallas, as there was occurring across the nation from Atlanta, Georgia to Chicago, from New York City to LA. There were several Black Lives Matter protests in several different cities. Dallas just happened to be one of them. And this was before Amber Geiger and all of that. And there was a situation where a ex-Army reservist, Mika Xavier Johnson, he ambushed Dallas police officers, killed 5 of them, wounded 7 others before he was blown up by a bomb robot that the police sicked on him. And this part of the reporting of that day was from the Dallas Morning News, that actually showed their coverage of that Black Lives Matter protest leading up to the attack, because the attack occurred later at night on July 7th, 2016. But before that, in the daytime, it was just like any other regular protest. And during this protest, you had, as you have with most of these demonstrations, you have, most people, they just participate, but then you have those who speak to the crowd. Sometimes they're designated speakers. Sometimes, they just kind of, um, they just kind of force themselves into the situation, giving speeches or having outbursts. And 2 of these speakers that they showed in that little short clip, one was a black male, Corey Hughes, who later on in the night, because he was there all day during the BLM protest, as some of you may recall, his face was plastered up as the chief suspect for a few minutes, Corey Hughes, because he was walking around with a shouldered M4 assault rifle, which is actually legal. Open carry in Texas is actually legal, although you don't typically see it. During the protests, him and some other black men were walking around with M4 assault rifles during the protest. And so somebody had taken a picture of him with the assault rifle, and the idiots on the news, without, getting any confirmation that he was the gunman, they falsely put his name and face out there. And once he realized that, he was being plastered up as a possible shooter of the cops, he immediately turned himself in. But one thing he said in at the beginning, I just, this video isn't really about that, but he gave that speech and he mentioned about, black, white, brown, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim, we all have to come together as people and attack injustice and address injustice. This, in my viewpoint, has been a critical weakness of black people, and particularly black men across the board for years. Y'all expect other people to join forces to help you do the dirty work, to help you clean up the mess, to help you fight for your freedom. And I'm sorry to tell you, in spite of what you think about the civil rights movement, that's just not, by and large, that's just not going to happen. It's just not the way human nature or any living organism nature of a separate species type actually works. It's just not, okay? Birds of a feather, by and large, are going to flock together. They may pretend, or there may be some that are individually sincere about helping you. There are good white people and other types of people. They say you shouldn't judge by the color, but when you're talking about the broad collective, black people wonder why things never change in their communities. Why the foreigners are taking advantage of the black community. Why white cops are killing black men and basically by and large getting away with it. It's simply because y'all are not willing to do what it takes at a socioeconomic and, yes, to some extent, even a militant level to make those other tribes of people respect you. You're just not. You're not willing to put in, to do that dirty work. and put in the nitty gritty that's going to be needed to make a change. If nothing else, cleaning up the trash before you deal with the trash outside of your race that you claim is threatening you and killing you and abusing you and taking advantage of you and discriminating against you. You first have to clean up the trash within your own tribe, within your own race. You Negroes aren't even willing to do that. And here you are standing on a soapbox calling on all races and all religions to come and help you. I'll tell you what the leader of the fucking PLO said back in the 1970s after they blew up a couple of fucking planes that they hijacked. He said, we call on revolutionaries of the world to unite, like the IRA or, ETA in Spain or the Red Army faction. We pretend to care about their revolutions, but we don't care. We just use them for publicity. We call on them to unite with us so we can draw the world's attention and media to our cause through pretending like we want to join forces and unify with their cause. At the end of the day, everybody, by and large, not individually, but collectively, are going to look out for their own. And the sooner black people learn that, the better off they'll be. But again, you Negroes don't want to do the dirty work. So you actually think that these politicians and these white folks, by and large, are going to do something. And look, on a side note, okay, that other dude that shot up the police in Baton Rouge, Gavin Long, 10 days after what happened in Dallas back in 2016, he brought up a valid point. I don't condone what he did. I don't condone killing innocent people. Now, if he had killed the cops who actually killed Alton Sterling, that would have been one thing. But I don't condone killing innocent people. But he brought up a legitimate point. He said, protest, you have to stand on your rights. Protesting, demonstrating, demanding your rights is not enough. He said, how do we know this? Through white and American history. George Washington. All of these, what was George Washington? He was a rebel, rebelling against the British crown. And so the only thing these motherfuckers understand per their history is money and blood. Now, again, I don't condone terrorism or murder or violence or anything. I'm just saying he made a valid point. So demonstration and marching, it's just like Eddie Griffin said, that ain't never done shit for us, and it never is. It never will. Okay? If you cannot show the dominating society or power structure that they have to respect you, they never will, because they don't have to. Okay? So I just want to get that out of the way. Now, to the issue of this girl, and you see the title of the video, Dear Keila. It's not that I'm directly addressing this goofy ass female, but I want to use an excerpt of some of what she said as a prime example of why black men are out here getting killed, not just by the police, but by other black men, why they're winding up, a lot of them in prison, locked up in jail, lengthy criminal felony records, and just all the manner of different ways of fucked up. And one would think that somebody would have picked up on this and, grabbed, figuratively, because she wasn't holding a mic, but figuratively grabbed the bullhorn or the microphone from her and said, no, honey, no. Even if you want to be respectful and not call her a dumbass bitch. No, honey, no. That is not the will of Allah. Okay? No. You don't tell black men at a time when black men are being shot down like dogs in the streets by white cops, which is the reason why we're here now. You don't tell black men to fight the police back like Ali. Okay? That is the worst fucking thing you could possibly do. Because what's the one thing, whether justified or not, whether we agree with what happened in the case of police shooting black men or not, What's the one thing that we know in almost all of these fucking cases? The Negro was resisting arrest. They were disobeying commands from police. They were running, they were fighting, they were struggling, they were reaching for something according to police or even according to the body camera, whether they were justified or not. And that was enough to get them shot. In some cases, the motherfucker wasn't doing nothing but what the police told him to do. And it looked like he was reaching for something or trying to attack according to the cop and wound up getting shot. And then this goofy ass fucking broad is going to yell in the crowd that you fight for your life. You fight like Ali. See, and this also points to how, women, and particularly black women, there are a lot of talk. There are a lot of salt with no substance. Okay? You have a lot of these, I'm just going to start calling them salt and no substance females, like Cynthia G, like Paris Milan, that will give these wonderful speeches that sound good on the surface, but they have no beneficial, lasting qualities. It sounds like it's an asset, but in a lot of cases, it's nothing. And in the cases that it is something, it's generally a liability. Because because what she's addressing the crowd, okay? This, Sandra Bland, who killed herself, by the way, that high profile case is an exception to the rule. Who's getting killed out here on these streets by not only white cops but other black men? Black men. By and large, it's not black women out here getting gunned down. Okay, Corinne Gaines, like I said, those are exceptions to the rule, and she was armed. Okay, they were justified in killing her crazy ass. By and large, it's black men out here getting shot down in the streets. So what that tells me is, when a black female, whether she was just being over emotional like black females typically do, and just talking before she was thinking logically, or whether she's one of those black females that will tell a nigga to do something and not care about the consequences to that Negro, okay? It tells me that this is why you cannot take these females seriously, and why she should not have opened her fucking mouth, okay? Because again, what they talk about, it sounds good. It's the salt that they pour, it sounds good. It looks good. It tastes good. But it has no substance. Just like people eat a lot of junk food. They eat a lot of food that, it has no nutritional value. Okay? What she's telling black men not only doesn't have any nutritional value to our survival, it is an outright threat. It poses a risk to our survival. Because the one thing we know about white cops and Pookies and Ray Rays have in common when it comes to the black man, whether he's a Pookie and Ray Ray, a blue collar brother, a white collar brother, or the president of the United States, they have no problem shooting your black ass. They have no fucking problem murdering your black ass. And turning around and saying, I was in fear for my life, and usually walking away scot-free. As I told y'all in one of my last videos, Daniel Holtzclaw rapes 13 hood rats in Oklahoma City, gets 263 years in prison. Yet the last 4 cops that were convicted, because most of them, the charges are dropped or never filed. Last 4 fucking cops get a combined 41 years in prison, and 2 of them are already out without even having served half of that fucking prison sentence. One of them not even a third. Okay? So when you have a black female who is there for the very reason why this bitch is there at the protest, the very reason why this protest exists 4 years ago, is because 2 black men were fatally shot in 2 different cities by 2 different non-black cops. In one case, Alton Sterling, whether you feel, they were justified in shooting him or not. In one case, Alton Sterling, what was he doing? What is the one thing we know he was doing? Whether he had a gun or not, he was resisting because he didn't feel the police had a right to put hands on him, much less take him into custody or search him. That's what got him shot and killed outside of that Arab liquor store. In suburban St. Paul, Minnesota, what was Philando Castile doing? He was reaching after informing the Hispanic cop that he had a fucking gun. He had a legal license in the state of Minnesota to carry. The cop told him don't reach for it. His biggest mistake was not responding and letting the cop, his biggest mistake was not as soon as the cop told him don't reach for it, not putting his hands up. Because I honestly don't believe the brother was reaching for a gun. I believe he was reaching for his wallet for his driver's license. And because that cop thought he was reaching to fight back like Ali, that's what got him shot and killed. Both of these dudes were fighting back like Ali. Michael Brown, who I believe was a justified shooting, but nonetheless, he was fighting back like Ali. Tamir Rice didn't really have a chance to fight back like Ali, but that's a subject for another video. Trayvon Martin was kicking George Zimmerman's ass. Now, George Zimmerman ain't a cop, but neither is he white, but that's also a subject for another video. But nonetheless, he was fighting back like Ali, or he was fighting like Ali, whooping George Zimmerman's punk ass. And where did that get those black men? Dead, and more dead. So why would this little stupid ass trick get in front of cameras and tell not only black men in the Dallas protest, but wherever that those recorded camera videos are going to broadcast in the United States and in the world, if you're a black man pulled over by the police and you feel threatened, you fight for your life, fight back like Ali. Now, there was a recent case, not here in the United States, but in Nova Scotia, Canada, some of you may have recalled, where a white man had a replica police car of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and a fake police uniform. And he tied up his girlfriend and then went on a drive-by shooting rampage across a couple of towns and killed 22 people. Some of his victims, he pulled them over and he got out of his fake police car with his fake police uniform, walked up to him and executed him. I think he did that in like 4 cases before he was finally shot and killed by the real cops. But unless you think you're in a situation like that, and how could you even tell? Why the fuck would you fight, especially as a black man? You might have a chance if you do that as a white man, or as a black female, or a white female. But if you do that as a black male, your ass is gonna be deader than yesterday's beer. Again, this is why you don't listen to women, and particularly black females, when it comes to issues of self-preservation or even self-defense. Because if anything, a wise black woman would be telling the crowd, if you get pulled over, keep your hands where you are. If the cop is out of line, try to make sure you record it, or look around, see if there are any witnesses. Follow their commands, even if you disagree with them. See, the main thing that's getting these Negroes killed, and I know some of y'all not gonna like this, okay? I'm not saying the cops are justified, because I don't believe they're justified in a lot of cases. But the main thing that's getting a lot of these niggas killed is that they reason just like these stupid ass whores. Like this one. That, oh, I'm emotional. I don't like what you're doing, so I'm gonna throw a tantrum. I'm gonna throw a hissy fit. I'm gonna resist. I'm gonna act up. I'm gonna act a fool, just like the baby mama that raised me. You know, they had a lot of black men, and they don't like it when I say they're half the problem, but a lot of you Negroes have that black woman syndrome. And that's what's not only getting you killed by the cops, but killed by other black males that are also degenerates. See? It's that very attitude that is seeping through that trap in her face called a mouth that is getting a lot of these black brothers killed in the first fucking place. The last thing you do as a black man, unless you're on a suicide mission, like Mika Xavier Johnson or Gavin Long, is fight back with the police. I remember there used to be a Negro that I used to have on my on my uh on my phone conference calls where I do the what I call them. They were like Google Hangouts, but they were three-way panel discussions. Some of y'all who remember me from 2015, 2016 remember those. And this brother, he was very emotional brother from the city of Chicago, you know, and he was talking about a moment in time where the Chicago police broke in his home looking for a drug suspect, but they broke in the wrong address and they were just, brutalizing him, up against the wall, calling him all kinds of names, including the N word. And he was really hurt by this. I think this brother was, oh, never mind. That's not even necessary. But anyway, he was really hurt and he was really emotional by this. And so I was trying to explain to him when he invited me on his show one day that, look, I understand, brother. I've been there. I've had cops act out of line with me. Okay. But there is a certain way that you deal with this. Acting overly emotional to it is not, I understand your anger. But look, don't get me wrong, if we as black people were in a position to fight this white system back, this white power structure back, and give it blow for blow, I would tell you, yeah, man, get down, brother. Protect and serve. But we're not, okay? So we have to be very tactical in the way we fight back. There are smart ways and dumb ways to do anything, including be a criminal, including resist the police. If they're out of line, you file a police complaint with the city. I'd say this from experience. Don't complain about cops to other cops, especially when you're black. Because most of the time, you're just going to find yourself disappointed and even more pissed off than you were in the original incident. But that's also a subject for another video. But complain to the city. Call a lawyer. Call the media. Make sure you have it on record. Put these motherfuckers on blast. Okay? But do not fight and resist and argue with the cop on the scene. Because if it's a dumb fucking cop, all you're going to do is the same thing that's going to happen if you argue with a dumb female or any dummy. You're just going to further escalate the situation and make it more tense because the person that you're getting into it with is already a dummy and now you're giving them an excuse to be even dumber. You don't fight the cops back like Ali. Unless you want to wind up dying like Ali, only sooner. These hoes, man. They'll just say anything that come out their little emotional ass mouth. They don't give a fuck what the consequences are. But again, the very fact that so many of you Negroes are still dealing with these hoes is that's why I say that y'all have the problem, but y'all don't like that. Talk to you later, guys. Whatever.